Hello. Just getting everything set up. Art live stream. If it's working. I may have just refreshed the wrong page. Okay, I've got my audio. That's coming in good. I've just got to set everything else up. uh, but how are you doing, chat? Also got to get chat set up. Okay, chat is it exists. Okie dokie. Copy link, gotta post the link in places, and then I'll get started. That's good. Okay, I think I'm good to go. It looks like everything's fine, I think. It looks fine. So I'm gonna draw. So last time it was, yeah, I got a lot done, actually. Uh, Blank canvas, and I will collapse that. So it started with, maybe not started with, but it was just like I wanted to draw my characters, and so I'm like, how do I do that? Maybe making an animatic or something, or at least like even if I don't assemble it into an animatic, just drawing stills from one of these stories is interesting to me, and I'm like, oh, I like doing that, and I get to see it as opposed to just writing the story, and then I love that shot, but just it's also drawing practice, but it's also like storytelling practice. It's all the practice. That's such a good. Once again, me admiring my. And then this, I wanted to finesse. So I wanted to copy. Can I copy the entire thing? If I copy the entire thing and add, if I make a new, if I make a new, oh no, it collapses it. Okay, so I'm gonna have to copy each one of these layers individually. So, one moment. I wanted to save that before I make changes, but I still want to make changes to it. Not that. Wait. Wait. No, wait. Alt-Y? Soft proofing? No. It does work! I just need to change the background. That actually looks really cool. Yeah, that actually works! You can copy entire groups. That's really cool. Okay. And now I'm gonna turn that back on. What did I do? I turned that off. Yeah, that's the part that I'm like, I want to keep this, but I maybe want to change the lighting a little bit. So that just involves me kind of finessing it as it is. Although I do want to keep CJ's side of it, and maybe like not that harsh. Like I kind of want like a little bit of. Okay, the light coming from behind this character is a bit too much. But I also maybe don't want it to be too rough, but also that's a little bit too blue. You know, I'll maybe like a little bit of green. I don't mind a little bit. Ooh. A little bit of green at the edge there is nice, but also I would like it to be a little bit brighter in the middle. Again, maybe not touching CJ at all. Maybe it's not, maybe not, okay. But I do want, I need a smaller brush, and I want this character to be way more in shadow and like really highlighted on the edges, but only the edges. And then I still need a smaller brush. I'm also using my mouse. I have a tablet in my hands. I have a tablet in my lap. I'm still using a mouse for whatever reason. And now I'm using a tablet. Okay. If I have side, like not side light. Yes, side lighting. That's not how you use. It's fill light. If I have fill light coming in from this side, I kind of want there to be some sort of indication that there is light coming from this side somewhere. There's this little sun right there. No. What if it was a different color, like orange, and it was like a different kind of lighting? So let's try something like this with a bigger brush. Wow, I don't know what that did. I, hmm. Something that like doesn't entirely take up all the screen, but kind of does. Also, I do like this blurry whatever's happening here, but I also want it to be in orange. So that this can be in orange and that there's like two different kinds of lighting coming in. Also want to blend that because that's looking closer to what I want, but it's not quite. I also don't want it to be like a cream sort of like what was it, orange creamsicle? I don't want it to be really orange creamsicle sort of looking, but like at least a little bit. Not too much. This is getting better. That's the blending tool. I actually like ironically, even though the lighting is coming from here, like from this direction from the center, like the headlights sort of lighting. Again, I'm not touching CJ. It's like this character that needs work. Uh that I still kind of want like there to be like really dark shadows on this edge so that it's just like this is bright light kind of looking kind of coming for your eyes a little bit. So if there's bright light coming here, then it's going to be a little bit more it would interrupt your ability to see distinct things. It would just like turn everything into a silhouette. So I kind of want this character to be in silhouette on this side, but then maybe like a little bit not on this other side, if that makes sense. So highlighting this this side of the face maybe wasn't what I was going for, even though it's highlighting CJ's face, which I still like. But like this character is more ominous, so I'll keep him as being more ominous. And then I'm a little bit bigger of a brush size. And then probably also blending tool at some point. Yep, this is what I'm going for. This is more what I'm going for. This is much better. And then highlighted from the back would be great. Hold on, yeah. Gotta bring chat back. Also, I realized the thumbnail. I like the thumbnail because I like. Hold on. This frame, it sort of looks ominous, like maybe a horror movie, but I don't like horror movies so much. So maybe it would be more similar to like a. I say I don't like movies so much, but I'm also thinking like analog horror. That's cool. Uh, or like something suspenseful, like a suspense thriller. Like this could totally be a suspense thriller, or like a noir. So I'm liking that. Where did my... There we go. That's already looking good. That's already looking really good. Also, I do like that, like after, what, 2 weeks-ish of just like, okay, I drew once and thought about it, and I sat and thought about it, and now I'm changing a couple things. That looks good. Maybe not the top of the head, but that looks pretty good. I want to go in and fix some of like these spots on the inside because that's kind of tricky. Because I want it to be bright. I just want it to be distinct and bright. I'm probably gonna need another blending tool, but it might just have to bleed through a little bit because I am using an airbrush tool. Let me see if I could blend a little bit of that. Not the part that you thought, probably, but some of what I'm using here isn't blending in with the rest of it, so... And it can still kind of bleed over. That looks really good. However, I'm also noticing one thing that's sort of plot relevant that needs to happen, and this probably will solidify who this character is, as far as, like, where'd it go? This character, the crocodile head guy, was either going to be Leland or it was going to be Sterl, and I'm pretty sure I'm leaning more towards it being Sterl at this point. That might change in the future, but for this drawing, let's say it's Sterl, because that's just easier. Because also then I can do the blue for the glowy eyes, and it looks really cool. If I can finesse that as well. And this also probably will have to be multiple layers because it's getting the glowy blue eyes effect does take multiple layers. Maybe it's close enough. I didn't put that on a separate layer. Hold on. And especially with like hazy, like airbrush kind of stuff, I would prefer it. I'd like, because some things that it's on the wrong layer, I can live with it or deal with it in some way. Hazy, airbrushy stuff, I do really need it to be on different layers, because if I want to change it, then I don't want to redo all of it. Okay. Let me try. That's goofy. It's goofy. That's not so scary. Let me flip this. Let me flip this entire thing. So I'm gonna alpha lock and then recolor that to the brightest color. And then that can stay the same, honestly. And then this can be the darkest color. Hold on. That's not working. However, I don't mind it because I can just easily redo that. I have an idea on why it's not working, but I don't know how to articulate it very well, so I'll just leave it at that. But it doesn't work. That's looking a lot better. That's still kind of goofy. I think that middle one... Wait, I did it again. Okay, so what if it were more pinpoint? Because I've made these hazy eyes that look serious before. It's like swirly stuff. A little bit like crazed. Yeah, like little bit crazed eyes. Which he's not actually crazed, well, debatably. It's less that he's actively mad, like as in crazy, like right now, and more just like that's just how the eyes look. That is just how it looks. Okay, and then I'm gonna fix. I'm just gonna erase that part and then redo it because that didn't quite go how I wanted it to. That doesn't look too bad, but also not quite what I was thinking of. Also, what if I alternate it? Because I could totally alternate that. Not terrible. Now the crazed eyes look goofy again. Uh, more pinpoint, I think. Okay. What if it's just like little blue and then dots, and then that looks also crazed? That might be too subtle. Oh, we're not that random dot in the middle. We're gonna stick with that. I like that. That looks terrifying. But also I also want to work on this lighting because this light. Once again, I made another thing that like. Why is that so funny? And yeah, I would be scared too. If I saw something like that. Crocodile. Silhouette. Crocodile guy. I don't know. I want it to be more orange. There's a lot more orange lighting in general coming from this direction. That does make it look better. But also brighter in the middle over here, kind of like an orange creamsicle kind of look. And I also kind of want, like, I guess, streaks of light coming around. Maybe a bit, I move the brush back to being big. Just to the curvature of some things. That does look good and kind of scary. It's almost like there's fire behind him, which is not accurate, so I might want to, like, have this be a little bit more pinpoint of, a pinpoint of light coming from this direction. Or, like, multiple lights or something. But obviously not fire. I just realized, my computer is set to shift the tone of the monitor to a more warm tone at night, which makes sense, like blue light, not keeping you up. But it messed up my sense of drawing and color and everything, so I'm gonna maybe try to turn that off. So give me a moment. And well, let's see if I can do it quickly enough, because it might take a hot minute. But also, it's not too bad of a drawing. If it'll load quickly, I might just put up with it. I might just put up with the change in tone. Because I suddenly like, wow, everything's suddenly like way more warm tone. Oh, that's why. Also, I'm wondering if it's like. No, I don't like that. I like it being much more like that. However, I'm gonna maybe dial it back a little bit. Blending tool. Because I would like... I still want to keep this purple, but I also want the orange tone... Or orange... Well, the darker orange tones in the background here, although I could throw in some red to see if that would actually mix better. Maybe not mix better, but like at least kind of be a nice in-between. That's not terrible. Okay, I do want to just keep smoothing this out with the blending tool. Because that looks pretty alright. And the edges of the the edges of the screen kind of affect the blending tool a little bit because there's nothing over there, and so it registers that there's nothing over there. And this is like a background lighting thing, so I want it to be smooth. I also want to smooth out some of this. Which is just sort of like working it until it looks good, basically. There's not a particular rhyme or reason except like I know what directions the blending tool, like roughly what it does in certain directions, so I'm just like I'm not always I'm not always using the blending tool in the same direction because then it does that because it drags the paint a little bit. Paint, color, whatever it is dragging across the screen. So I'm like trying to match the shape, and sometimes I'm going in different directions because of that. Blending tool, gonna go back up to here. Trying to make that lighter. I don't necessarily need a lighter. I might want that to be slightly lighter though. That looks really good and really scary. I'm gonna maybe try to dial back this a bit more though. Which I kind of... Okay, what does that look like? Not quite... Because I've got this, like, shape here that both follows his shoulder, but also kind of has this lighting look like a diamond, but, like, each of those individual light sources would kind of have... I'm thinking of it sort of being like, what is it called? An anamorphic lens, how it stretches light. Like it's got these. Well, first of all, it's got lens flares. Just because the lens is more oval shaped, and standard lenses are more circular. And so an oval shaped lens will kind of stretch little lines of light, like the radial pattern around a light. Basically, it'll stretch it on an anamorphic lens, and it'll do other things. So I guess I'm thinking of that, and maybe like there's like another one or two things that are like hidden over here. Or maybe just making a bunch of little streaks of light on the side over here, and then just for aesthetic, and then see if it looks good, and then it does look good, and I'm like, oh, okay. Sometimes it's just, try something and see if it looks good, and there's, Control Z. The great thing about digital art is that there's Control Z, or that you can save a copy. This is what it used to look like. I saved a copy so that I wouldn't be afraid to mess with it, and then I got this, which is super cool. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Just little That looks really cool. And scary, and then they have a nice conversation, maybe, probably. I don't know. I want this to be a little bit more, maybe there's just like more like more layers of this. It gets brighter near the source of the light, and it gets less bright when there's not light around, something like that. And then I'm probably going to be using a blending tool as well, but then, get some of this outer stuff that still has some of the rich color in it, and it's slightly more saturated, but it gets darker over time. Because that's a fun thing, is that if it's more saturated, it also gets darker. So, like, not saturated, saturated, but gets darker. Unless it's, like, bright like that. So, like, I like the triangular color selector because it's very easy to see, like, where everything is in relation to each other, I think. That was a little bit brighter than I had used earlier. And a little bit of red at the edges because and maybe make that a bit darker, and then blending tool, just laying down colors and then trying to shape it how I want it to. Actually, okay, maybe not that much of a blending tool. Make it smaller. So that I still get some of the cool shapes in here, because it does look pretty good. But I don't need it to be like, yeah, like I kind of want it to be like a little bit less, that you can kind of tell the brush strokes from the digital, from whatever the brush was. Like, I want it to be a little bit more smooth because it's also supposed to be coming from the background. Also, I can like try to make the ends a little bit more pointed as opposed to round, because pointed edges for light makes sense to me, because that's kind of what happens. And then poor CJ. Although I did figure out last time that this would be in the last piece of the story, where it's like very late into the history of the world. There's more technology, less magic, and so very magical guy just shows up, and then they're friends, so they know each other, and they're like, like, what are you doing here looking like that? And then there's he's trying to be a vigilante and like find these not bootleg, but like stolen, maybe not stolen, question mark, I don't know. There was like some sort of magic items that were that he needed to rescue. Yeah, let's say like there were stolen magic items in need of rescuing, and he just looks that way. He just looks intense anyway. But there were stolen magic items in need of rescuing, and so he's on the job, even though it is like probably the wrong time period to just go running around looking like that. But whatever. Oh, and then there was another frame. Not that one. Oh, it was the one after this. This one that I started and I drafted it, and I wanted it to be like the companion to the first image, or also the thumbnail. Uh, well, there's little cartoon director. There's and the gang's all here. But this also needs more orange. But I wanted it to be the companion image, and then with him walking away. But he looks like a bug right there, so I'm gonna need to work on the shape. But well, if I could swap the correct visibility, that looks so cool. Okay, I do want to put in a little bit of red in the like here on the armor a little bit, because if it's, am I on the Because if I'm going from the orange to purple thing again, and it's consistently like red in the middle over here, then I kind of want it to be red in the middle over here just to be consistent. Yeah, that looks really cool. Okay. And now this one where I'm gonna try to make it so that he does not look like a bug. Oh, there's a couple extra things there. That's fine. I would like something with a solid eraser, with a bigger brush size, better. Uh, so first of all, I'm gonna try to make him like a little bit more distant. Maybe with his head like a slightly turned like that, so that you can kind of see the jawline, you know, without the lower jaw, because it's relevant. And then really thin. I need really, really thin. Maybe not that thin. That's pretty good. And then remove that. That's already looking a whole lot better. Like, it was sort of like he's, like, looking over his shoulder. That's cool. I think I mentioned, like, some sort of, like, skeletal neck. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see that at all. So let's just skip that part. Yeah, and it's, like, arm going back a little bit, because you look over your shoulder, your whole body kind of turns in that direction a little bit. And he's got like I guess clawed hands because dragon not actually a crocodile. And that that's probably a better spot for the waist, but I'm not worrying too much about it. I also might need to move this around. Not that in particular. Okay, so I need to move this to another layer so that I can move it around. And yeah, okay, so one thing I always do is I make a new layer to paste something on, and then I forgot that, like, if you paste something, it makes a new layer automatically. So I'm like, I could have just pasted it. That's looking a bit better. That's a little bit more size and scale accurate, I believe. Okay, legs. Legs would have been something like that. Also, nope. Nope. I'm probably not going to worry too much about the legs. No, I wouldn't do that. Probably wouldn't worry too much. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. That does not look bad at all. It's like the... I might need to zoom in. So I don't often zoom in, because, like, I can kind of tell what it looks like at a distance, and it's just forgetting the overall feel of what it actually looks like at a distance. But getting the shape of the shoe, I might want to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Let's see. I know he's wearing jeans and it's supposed to be armor. We'll work on it later. One thing I always try is like it's like pants are pretty easy to draw, but like also did I draw pants as opposed to armor over here? I did. You could just be wearing jeans. Jeans also being useful in like a work clothes sort of sense. I don't know. Maybe it's armored jeans. It's modern fantasy. I could totally have armored jeans because I like drawing just pants. As opposed to plate armor, I guess, or like I guess there would be like leg bracers, possibly. I'm sticking with jeans. And now I'm gonna redo CJ over here, and I'm also gonna take him and move him to another layer because there's some extra stuff. See, that's fine. And I can remove the correct layer, this one, yes. Yeah, then I can remove that one, and then it's all nice and clean, and then he's looking back, he's looking at his friend. Actually, I don't think there's much I need to do with CJ, because that was also kind of a draft, but I think for the most part, if I've got a character, there's not much touch-up I need to do, from, like, just sketching to, like, everything else. Because it's similar to how I texture in Minecraft, is that there's just, like, I can texture as I go, and so it looks pretty finished once I've just done a once-over. So, like, if I just draw a draft, it already looks pretty finished, which is fine with me. And then if I need to touch up things, then I can. I think just some of this is less clear. That's better. That is starting to look better. More distinct eyebrow right there. Friend walking away. I'm also gonna move him over to right there, which was more intended as to where the leading lines are. Where your eyes are drawn to, where are the angles going? I don't really want his hand to be that close. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. That's pretty good. I'm gonna hop back over to CJ's layer. I feel like I need the eyebrow to be more expressive or something. Okay, now I don't like... Whoop, okay, whatever's happening there. Okay. No, I need that color. That's looking better. But this is still a little bit too getting in the way. That's pretty good. I'm gonna... It's funny how, like, you work on one part of the face and you realize another part of the face is off, or not quite how you wanted it to be. That happens sometimes. That's pretty close. That is close to what I'm thinking, but there's a couple of things that I may have gotten not quite how I wanted it to be. This also might be one where I zoom in. Ironically, me using a thicker line for the jaw actually worked there. Although now I need to get rid of the, like, I don't like the thick line work for the ears. Or the one ear that's visible. That looks really good. I really like that. I still feel like it needs more orange in the background, but I can kind of fix that. Not that much orange. It's more of a brown, but like, how about like you do a bigger, much bigger brush, but a lot smaller opacity? Yeah, something like that. Okay, I'm just trying to, I guess, make the lighting help focus your eyes on the characters more than just like the surroundings or the fact that like lighting does exist. I just want it to focus on the characters. So if I'm adding, like highlights here or like removing highlights there, it's like trying to focus everything. And I'm not sure if I like that orange down the middle where CJ is. That's already looking better. At least for focusing on CJ. And that's pretty good for focusing on a dragon character guy over here. Make that more connected. And smaller eraser. It's pretty good. There's like a lot of like little bits and pieces that could be cleaned up, but this is also mostly a draft, so I'm not gonna worry too much about it. But the stuff that connects weird, that's, you can see it at a distance, that's kind of weird. That's what I'm trying to focus on, and now I don't like the legs, so I'm actually gonna change the waist. Because the thing that looks weird might actually not be the thing itself, but it's the whatever connects to it. It's not awful. I feel like... Yeah. Hmm. It's too... That's good for now. I'm not... Okay. That's not cool. Why is this? That's good for now. No, it's got weird. Okay. It's too. Okay, that is too flat. That might be too. Nope, that's good. That's good. That's good. It's a balance of like I want it to look curved and not flat. And then if I connect it here, then this is a connecting point for a lot of other spots. So like it's a weird spot for your eyes to fall. So I move it over here. But then I still need it to be curved and not flat. So it's just finessing it until it looks okay. This looks pretty good. I might work on the lighting a little bit just to make that not quite so much all the same kind of like very bright yellow sort of color because I want it to kind of fade into other things. That's looking pretty good. That does fade into orange a little bit more. And I look at things small, partly because of habit, because of looking at thumbnails, but also partly because of you just get a better sense for what it looks like overall if it's small, and like is it readable when it's small, like at a distance, basically. That like if I can still tell what's happening when it's like this big, then that's pretty good as far as composition. But also like if it's a thumbnail, which it might be, because I'm trying using the sketches that I have made as thumbnails for future VODs. So like this is the thumbnail. So if these are gonna be thumbnails, I kind of want them to look compositionally good, but like also I'm not leaning super hard into. Oh, that's the depth of field example I had. I'm not leaning super hard into it needs to look like a thumbnail because that is a completely different sort of um, setting up composition than if I were to like I'm just trying to make a good image. Like that would be like a camera thing. Although ideally, every shot, every frame, like in a storyboard in a movie or anything, could stand alone, like be stand alone and be really really good, and then like compositionally works. uh, Thumbnails just have like a really interesting set of guidelines, let's say, to make it function better as a thumbnail. But it's not necessarily what you always want to do in just a movie. Still, this looks really cool. Like I don't even. There's something that is happening here with that the edges of like it goes haze and then the edges are very bright and then it gets darker and then it gets bright again. I kind of don't exactly know how I did that. Wait, maybe I do. Because this is purple. So if I kind of like, if that's still the purple showing through, but it's lighter than the blue, then that's really cool. It works really well. And also it looks, that looks cool. And scary. Okay, so I have that, and then looking over the city, and then CJ's looking behind him, and then meets this guy, and then there's probably needs to be a couple of, a couple of things that happen in between this and this, and then definitely needs to be a lot happening in between this and this because this is where he first drops down and they talk, and then he's walking away. So there needs to be a conversation in between that, but that's going to be like a lot of shot, reverse shot, and stuff. So I might just have like two, like just like a simple setup of like the dragon guy's over here and CJ's over here, and then they just go back and forth. And I don't change the background, or I change the background minimally, and then I change their facial expressions a whole lot more. That would be in the more like nitty gritty, like making an animatic thing. But also I would need to know what the conversation is. So that's harder to improvise as opposed to just like, this is a cool image, I want to draw that. So I would need to be a little bit more like map that out, script that out a little bit more in detail. And then we know it ends. Well, we know it starts with him jumping in. Jumping into the conversation, and we know it ends with him walking away. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe they're both walking away, and he turned back around. And they're both turning. I don't know. Let's just image wise, as far as like what this image looks like is happening, is that he's just walking away, because it's also the mirror of this of him walking down the stick figure CJ walking down the back hallway. I keep wanting to say hallway. I think I did that last time too. The back alleyway. So it's the mirror to that. However, I was also thinking of drawing just sketches of these characters. In not necessarily this scene. In not necessarily the scene, but like other things. And I think I mentioned last time that in some versions of the draft, that Ice King is the same guy as Sturl, and I'm thinking of maybe leaning into that tentatively, but also not necessarily like hard and fast, because I could still change my mind and be like, actually, no, but it's also, there's a lot up in the air, but there's also some like similar themes that I'm following that like, this is pretty consistent across all my drafts. I'm gonna keep this. Or like, this is pretty consistent. I have an idea, actually. It could be a parallel to this scene, which is all, scary overlooking something. But it's, if this is, Sturl, if it's this guy, then a companion shot that would also, like, mirror, but, like, contrast, it would contrast this, would be, Leland, but, like, on the top of a hill in, like, what is it? Like a plains, sort of like you've got like wild grass and stuff. He's on the top of a hill, and there's like blue sky and everything, and there's a completely different lighting, completely different tone, but it would parallel sort of the shape and where he is. Although like Sturl in this one is like a little bit more on the towards this side, and so Leland might be on like this side, and you can kind of see like all the sky and stuff. So I'm gonna draw that because that sounds fun. And I'm going to add a new layer above this one. And I'm probably going to need to group the layers pretty quickly, but I also want to make a gradient of the sky, because that's fun. And that's what a better way to start. I should make it solid. That's better. And the sky is going to be lighter towards the horizon, and not as light towards everything else. Because as you get, you look up at the sky, it'll be more blue. I'm not going for, like, strictly sky blue. Well, this is pretty sky blue. It actually also gets, slightly more like that sort of a blue as you go up. And then I'm going to blend that to try to make it a little bit more consistent. Which I'm also kind of like half not blending. Also, let's see if this helps at all. I'd made a spot. Okay. I'm not sure if this is actually helping. This is looking more like an aurora with how it goes up, how the lighting goes up. But this is looking pretty good. So maybe I'll keep this. You got some weird sky patterns, and it's also a fantasy world, so like the sky could do this. That looks pretty cool, actually. Okay, I'm gonna turn the opacity down and kind of like blend it a little bit more, just generally, like side to side now, to try to make it less, like, look like it's going up. That's a pretty good sky gradient, actually. And that spot looks slightly more gray than usual, so I'm gonna maybe fill that in. And then do the same thing I did before with the blending. It goes up a little bit, and then I'm still on low opacity, so it's fine. And then blend it to the side, and then that looks really good. And then I probably that needs to be on top, and then I quick group that. Group, quick group, cool. And then this is going to be like on a hilltop kind of a thing, so I basic shape first. That's really, really green. I don't need that to be that green. Yeah, let's start with that sort of green and then, yeah, let's start with that sort of green and then, like, that'll be the darkest color in the whatever's happening here with the grass. Because at the moment, I'm just laying down color and trying to get a semblance of the texture when I've, you know, it needs, I need to lay down color at the start anyway. So if that's the darkest color of the grass, then we can move upwards from there. And then I'm making it slightly transparent because grass has, well, some element of subsurface scattering that, like, it's not completely solid. Like, a brick wall is really solid, you're not going to get any light passing through it. You get some light that passes through grass. So I still kind of want to capture that. Also going in different directions so that it's like, you're like rolling fields, you know, like, fields of grass kind of go in multiple directions depending on where the wind is going, because the wind can go in multiple directions at the same time, basically. Well, maybe not at the same time in the same location, but like in the same visual you can see a field of grass, then you can also see a lot of wind changing directions or kind of making like a wavy sort of pattern, or like you get stronger wind in some spots, so the grass is pushed over more in one spot as opposed to the other. And like I do like drawing landscapes, and especially mountains, and this is not going to have mountains in it. But usually I draw landscapes because, well, especially, well, I usually draw mountains just because it's pretty, and I do love drawing mountains. But like this has story motivation in it, and then like there's a particular character that you know is standing here. So let's, and so CJ up here had like a yellow. CJ was a yellow outline. He's usually more associated with orange. And so for this character who is more associated with gold, I'm gonna like lean in more towards gold. And maybe get a smaller brush that's maybe solid. Mm-hmm. He's happy. Arm goes there. I don't know, I think that needs to match the shape of his shoulder. But that is the cloak. That is, you know, his cloak, whatever shape of it is. So it's rustling in the wind a little bit. Yeah. Fabric is tricky. That's... That was a cool curve, but I didn't. That's not what I needed. So if that's one end... See, his cloak doesn't necessarily have two sides. I'm gonna draw it with two sides. It doesn't necessarily have two sides because it could be there's a cloak with essentially like 4 panels, I guess, if you think of it like curtain panels. He's like wearing 4 curtain panels, basically. Kind of. Maybe sometimes 2 curtain panels. But like you can see it better with Ice King over here. Maybe you can't see it better with Ice King. If I draw Ice King, you can see it better, but that's less of a cloak, more of a layered something or other. Okay, so he's happy. Okay, and then I do want, see, that's the layer of me laying down color. And then I want to have another layer of like just attempting more like a highlights sort of thing, which is going to require, I want to go for like something that's a little bit more textury. Maybe. Too much texture. I could try that. Although grass is pretty, like, surprisingly soft, if you see it. So I might want to go for something that's a little bit more soft. Actually, that's not too bad. That wouldn't be too bad because it's also the semi-transparent, but it's not necessarily... Actually, nope. I'm gonna go for the pencil-looking thing. So, highlights up here from the sun coming from... Do I want this to be in golden hour? Ah, okay. I already drew the sky blue. So what if it's like middle of the afternoon? Kind of, so the light is kind of coming from up top a little bit, so it's a little bit glaring in your eyes, but it's not golden hour, and so there's not going to be much orange, if at all, but it's just going to kind of come down from the top, but you still get some reflections from grass, because grass is also very kind of shiny, shimmery in the light, like it's reflective, like, I guess it's waxy, that, like, I don't know the scientific term for it, but like grass does have sort of a waxy texture sometimes, or it's at least it's like smooth enough to be reflective. And this is one of those things that grass is such a detailed thing that I will probably go and highlight this for multiple passes, and then just try to like layer it on top of each other until you get like a... Okay, I also need background context. I need more hills in the distance. Way more hills. Yeah. Background context. This is not going to end up being a Windows... Is it XP or 7? One of those. It's not going to end up being one of those. Okay. That is the Lore Castle city in the background. that's a real thing. I just didn't invent that. That's the castle town place in the background. There are gonna be mountains in the background, because if that's there, then there are mountains. But they're more distant mountains, to be fair. And that needs to get more hazy over time. Not less purple, more blue. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna have some sort of like solid, he is solid in this drawing. Like the lighting is, like, I do want this character, because over here where it was very dramatic and noir, and you had like you had light spilling in over into the characters, into the line work. I don't necessarily want that for this. So I'm going to just, give him a layer where it's all filled in, and I can actually Well, he's got a navy blue cape, so... How about I remove that? Whoop. How about I just remove that layer? Add another layer. Perfect. Navy blue cape. And this is the... That's a little bit too dark. It's a little bit too saturated. Ah, that's pretty good. That's better. I would like him to be, like, a little bit more, you know, solid. Compared to the grass, because the grass is going to be very, like, maybe almost intangible, but at least, you know, semi-transparent. You can kind of see through it. There's a little bit of, like, light coming through the grass. You know, it comes in patterns. There's a lot of it, a lot of layers, and then he's solid. This is greatly improved by the addition of mountains in that city in the back. Like, already I like this so much more. Because it would make sense for him to be happy in a field that happens to be his hometown. Which is that's Katir, that's a glass castle. That's just like not actual glass, but like magically glass. It looks like glass. I think it's more close to like if ice wasn't cold and was a significantly stable building material, basically. You know, that's more what it's like. It's less like glass, although you can kind of see through it a little bit sometimes. I wonder if they, you know, they could have like, not like they're gonna like make the entire thing look glass, but I wonder if they can control the opacity of parts of it, possibly for like light shows. You know, like if they have an event, you know, like a citywide event, and they have like a fireworks show or something. Maybe not fireworks. Maybe something else. Maybe the laser beams isn't much better. But you know, something that's like festival is going on, they can turn the castle into a little bit of a light show itself. That, you know, you've got this like glassy material that like captures colored light and then, you know, like kind of bounces it back, and, you know, like different stuff like that. Yeah, this is looking a lot better. And then the rest of them would just be like this lighter color yellow for now. That's a placeholder. That's definitely a placeholder, but I definitely need to work on the grass, because the grass is going to be what's actually, I do need to work on his hair. That's not okay. This is the one where I need to zoom in and have a decent sized brush that makes sense for the character. And I know that looks kind of similar to CJ. It's not the same guy. Let's give him elf ears for now, but that might change. He's happy. I mean, not change narratively, as in like he doesn't become an elf well. He might in the D&D campaign that a lot of the story is based on, he was an elf that became a dragon, so there was that. But it's not like he would be an elf that was a shapeshifter. So, you know what, maybe all bets are off on that point. Maybe he just does what he wants. No, that's that piece is like way too much like CJ. I almost said Sterl. I'm like, no, that's the wrong character. That's looking a bit better, a bit closer. Glasses? Tiny nose glasses? I'm always trying to look for spots where the tiny nose glasses work, although he's not reading at the moment, so it might not work. That's decent. That's actually kind of decent. Okay, back to whatever is happening with the grass, which I still need highlights. I have the color for highlights down there because being able to eyedropper tool for it is going to be troublesome. That's still a decent size. And I don't want it to be consistently, like, because that's like a pretty consistent field, but I also kind of want like shadows and highlights within where the highlights are. I have like a mental image of like, that needs to go below. Yeah, there's a little bit of grass on top of him. I have a mental image of seeing grass waving in the wind, and there's it was very, light was hitting in a particular way, and that's where I'm getting like the reflections and stuff. But also there was like patches that were lighter and darker, and it was just looked like rolling hill, like rolling fields of grass, basically. And it was hard to capture. I might need something underneath this layer that's a little bit like something a little bit more consistent than what is under it presently. Which is pretty alright. And also I'm going to add this to all the background layers, because now all the background layers look kind of different. Not quite what I need, basically. I don't know how that line of blue got there. You know what? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Also, I'm just gonna do the quick version of that on the wrong layer, apparently. When I airbrush tool this background, because the background doesn't need to be as detailed, but I still want like the highlights and shadows and stuff, so I'm just airbrushing it to get the effect. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but I just want the effect in the background as well. And then the foreground is going to be what's the actual trouble. Okay. I still need to finish filling in back here, over here. Do I have the right brush for it? Yes. Yeah, that's looking a little bit more better. Solid, less like it's like floating in midair with like some sort of like background behind it. It's not quite solid. This is looking, well, you don't look at the layer, but it looks solid. Okay, and then you take this color, and then I'm gonna have it be more highlighted, but then like a smaller version of the same brush that's less common of highlights on its own layer. This might be one of those things where it's like it has like so many layers, and this also needs to be kind of on the top. This might be one of those like really layer intensive things. Not that small, and a little bit more light. Yeah, it's not bad. I'm also kind of just, I guess chicken scratch, not necessarily like having it be in any particular pattern, because it's like random patterns. There was a long time ago where someone was like, "You're really good at patterns," and I'm like, "Am I?" Because like I can draw lava pretty decently, but it's like also another time someone else had said like, my art style is like abstract and objective at the same time, and I'm like, what does that mean? Those are opposites, aren't they? But I can kind of see it. uh so combine both of those two, that I'm good at patterns and it's objective and abstract at the same time, then whatever I'm doing to make patterns and make things look like the way they are, I'm just gonna keep doing that. he's happy. Look at him! He's so happy. And then watch that not be the case in one of the few. It's one of the few times where he is happy, because you know, stuff happens, but you know, in that moment, you know, like everything is right with the world basically, and you know, he's the protector of his city, and you know, and everything's fine, and then it's not. That does look pretty good. How it, you know, fades into the distance like that. That's good. But you know, also, where'd they go? Yeah, these guys. He's also got those guys to help, but you know, they also, you know, I I don't want to say maybe once had happy lives, because I think CJ still has a pretty happy life. Like CJ is doing great. Like, look, he's so happy. Like the you know, like wholesome little bean. Everyone else is maybe not so happy, but you know, that's how it goes in stories, I guess. But the goal is for a happy ending, basically, and you know, however long that takes. He's Mr. Time Traveler. This is just down to pixels. I don't know. Because Leland being time traveler, that is also another consistent thing with the stories, but it would be it's variable, like what time travel happens, because it could just be quite often time loop mechanics, quite often get stuck in an inanimate object for X amount of years, X amount of centuries, you know, that happens. You know, there's some things that are a little bit easier to swallow than others as far as time travel. And then other things about time travel in this story is that it's like amazingly stable. Like some things that you would think would break everything don't actually break everything. So that's just a thing. And then other things that are like really kind of minor actually kind of have like the a little bit more of a snowball effect, I guess. Like, I want to say tumbling down a hill effect, which is also what a snowball does. It's like, whoops, but it's like less about that the time travel mechanic itself messed up or that the universe is unstable. It's more just like about character decisions and what do these characters do and like how does that result in everything. It's just super character motivated, and especially like if I could get down here, how they interact with each other. Because if you've got the, let's say 3, assuming that these two are the same person, let's say you got the 3, some of the 3 top most powerful people on the planet dealing with stuff. You know, there's a lot of consequences associated with their decisions, and like sometimes they would be like leaders of a planet, sometimes they would be like not around, I don't know, off doing their own thing, off to another world, and their absence would cause something, and so it would just be like, while the story is focused on them, it's also like, understandably, a lot of things can happen if they get involved, but it's also a, understandably, they're also a little bit troublemakers. Except for CJ. No, he's also very much a troublemaker. I mean, look at his face. That's very much a troublemaker face. But again, it's super character driven about like just these 3 interacting with each other, and then we're maybe gonna throw in the guy that doesn't exist, who is not actually Ice King. There's a fourth guy who's maybe doesn't exist, so I'm not gonna mention him too much at present, but he does get involved sometimes. And then there's like a 5th guy that's more just like he's there, more of a side character, more of an NPC, I guess. But like the decision makers are these 3 plus maybe a guy that doesn't exist, plus maybe if Ice King is technically not the same guy as Stroh, like if it's actually 4 main characters, then it's these 4 making the decision. But considering how this guy and this guy might actually be the same character, I'm just gonna like bunch it together and say like, you're the same character for now. If I want to change it later, I can change it. Let's see. Back to so pretty. He's so happy. I need to figure out the rest of this grass. Let's see. And this is gonna be like all the layers in the world, probably. And maybe I want something a little bit more on the yellow side. And maybe I want something in a just slightly different brush. Ooh, that's a smaller brush. Or, I just hop over to the other file. No, I want something in a slightly smaller brush. No, still smaller. I didn't actually change it. Okay. That's too small. That's alright. I'm gonna put this in a very specific spot in relation to the highlights. Because I'm kind of thinking that that might be... like, not direct light, but maybe like a bounce light or incident light or like something that's like a little bit reflective. Maybe like a little bit implying the subsurface scattering, but like also not filling in all the little holes. But like just it is related to the light that exists. It's coming off a little bit, actually not cooler, a little bit more yellow. So, but it's also I'm not entirely sure how to words this, but it is related to the lighting that exists. He looks so happy. You know, maybe I should give him a yellow tunic more often, because that actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna... If I stop tabbing out of chat. If I stop moving the thing around, that's settings. Wait a minute, did my... Now everything's too blue. Okay, I'll keep the nightlight on. I don't know if you can see that at all, because it's just my monitor display. But the at a certain time at night, I swap it to being in like an orangey light, not too orange, but like just a little bit more warm tone. So there's not like blue light in my face, you know, right before bed, because apparently that helps. You know, it helps you sleep. So I'm told, and in practice, it doesn't hurt. So, you know, it actually I think it did kind of make a noticeable difference when I turned that on. I'm like, oh wait a minute. I can actually stare at my screen and still feel sleepy. I don't know. So that's on. Maybe not sleepy all the time, because I still... I can still work. It's not like it puts me to sleep. Let's see. It's just easier on the eyes. But then I'm trying to art, and then the color temperature of the monitor changes suddenly, and I'm like, everything's too orange, and then I get used to it. And now it's not too orange, but then if I turn it back to blue, then it's a problem. Okay, I'm actually gonna swap... I'm gonna make some of the... Where's the layer with all the stuff in the background? Oh, it is still this. I'm gonna make that a little bit more, yellow. But not entirely. Maybe with a... this tool? Maybe not airbrush tool. Maybe like... Maybe like chunks like that? Maybe? Ooh. Ooh, maybe. That's not too bad. And I can blend it with a different tool. Let's try this one. Because that's... the blending tool I usually use is like it makes everything smudgy. This one, it kind of like retains some of the shape of the surrounding stuff. So I'm gonna try that. That's the eraser on the blending tool, and I don't need that. You know, it's not too bad. So, now I want to work on the shadows, which should also be... You know what? I think leaning more into yellow is the play here. Because bright green is what I'm aiming for, and it, you know, it looks like a green field, but I feel like, grass, there's wild grass. It has a very limited range of time that it actually appears bright green, but it would still probably appear a little bit more not orange, yellow. It would still probably appear a little bit more yellow. And then I'm gonna turn that opacity way down, and then try to do the chunky kind of with a bigger brush size. Trying to do the chunky thing over here. If I can stop shaking the screen by accidentally grabbing the side scrolly thing. Because it's very easy to just grab this. Yeah, it just lets you grab it. That's looking good. Okay, I do want to emphasize some of the shadows, but that's starting to look good. I mean, it has been looking good. I mean, look at how happy he is. But emphasizing the shadows, probably want to go a little bit more into teal, which maybe not that much into. No, maybe a bit more into wild take. A little bit more into red. I don't know why it works, but it is doing a better job than teal. Unless I overdo it, so I'm gonna try not to overdo it. Let's see. And then the preview just looks like that. However, so I'm going to overdo it for a time and then bring it back with a smaller brush size and slightly less opacity, I think. With a medium brush size and slightly less opacity. I don't want it to be too red, but like just like a little bit is fine. And again, it's not golden hour, so I don't need it to be too orange. But for some reason, like the red dart, that's why it works. That's why it works. How did I forget dart exists? Is that if the underlying base of this is actually dirt and you're seeing a little bit of it poke out, then that makes sense. And so I need more shadows though. So like I'm gonna try to put some of the green back into it. Maybe not that kind of a green. Maybe like that kind of a... No, it's really blue. That's also really... Again, leaning into yellow seems to work. That's fine. I think I just need, like, more spots with highlight. Like, the spots where there's shadow there's too much. I just want, like, stripes of shadow, but not too much so that, like, there can be a pattern, but it's still, like, largely... You've got the rolling field sort of look. Also, is this the layer that has the... It does. So I'm going to try to erase some of this top part that looks kind of not natural to grass. Like, I want the grass texture that I made with all the highlights. Which, that's looking better. Not that part. And I'll probably go back in with more highlights. See, I still don't know where that blue line came from. Yeah, what's with the blue? Oh, maybe. No, I really don't know what that blue line came from. Cleaning up the line work. I'm cleaning up the color that's filling in a draft. That looks really good. Okay. Yellow was really working out with this. Also, so that's mountains. I want a little bit of color behind the mountains, a little bit. If it's solid, that's not solid. It's not solid either. That's something. I'll fix it later. That's a little bit too... How about I fix it now? Because it's not supposed to be that purple. That's decent. And then we got Glass Castle, which should actually be a little bit more light blue. Um, and those over there actually should be, matching its, that matches better. That matches better. There we go. That Glass Castle should actually be, like, a little bit more light blue. It's so that people mistake it for ice. Similar to that, I think. Okay, I want a bigger brush. It's a little bit more not like that. What brush should I use for that in the first place? That's better. That's closer to what I was thinking of, but also I do want it to be like a little bit purple, so I'm going to alpha lock that and make that slightly more purple. Which not that purple. Maybe just like a shadow on it, like that, something like that. Yeah, that works pretty all right. Like it's sort of like an indistinct color, I guess. And it kind of blends into the sky a little bit. That's totally fine. And then back to the... I think I was using a pencil for that, but I do want to come back to all the highlights I was making, that suddenly everything is a highlight, because that's where you get the texture of the tops of the... I had that alpha logged. It should be 15% though, for whatever reason that it shouldn't be that big. Yeah, the pencil works best when it's at 15 because that's the default for it, but I've tried changing the opacity on this pencil brush, and it doesn't really work the same. Like, it just doesn't, for whatever reason, the like, so if I take, okay, so 15% pencil brush kind of looks like, well, I'm gonna zoom in better because you can kind of, 15% pencil brush. 100% pencil brush works, but like if you want the texture of like pencil or like even chalk, then you kind of need it at a lower opacity so that it gets all the texture visible. Yeah. Okay, so I'm adding some of this, actually I could go for like a slightly different color on a different layer, probably. Yeah, this is the random patterns like this. I really want it to be on different layers so that if I mess up, I can fix specifically that spot. Actually, no, not darker. If I mess up, I can fix specifically that spot, but then I still end up like with a whole mass of stuff like on many different layers like this. I think I usually like try to collapse some of these later, that if like it looks good, then I can just collapse some of it and then it's good. Although with Leland there, I wouldn't want to collapse that one because that is actually like a functioning layer that I have him. Well, if the line work wasn't on the same layer as that, but I can fix that whenever I get to it. Okay. And then I guess I'm just filling in the rest of the shadowy areas because I kind of want some shadows, but like not a lot of them because it still should have like, like rolling. It's not wheat, but it's just like wild grass. like rolling wild grass, and it's just pretty, and there's a lot of it. It's kind of like you're swimming in it a little bit, so there needs to be enough so that you're at least swimming in it. And so this is all kind of going in a similar direction, and then it kind of changes direction over here. So this is the line where it kind of changes direction. Or at least there's like a different perspective. Like this is a hill, and then this is a bigger hill that's kind of coming over top of it a little bit. Also, I'm going to swap to the actual highlights layer and put in some more highlights with a very small brush. Maybe not that small. That's also kind of a theme. It's like I want it to be small, but not terribly too small. Also not terribly too big either, so it's between 6 pixels and 12 pixels. Sure, that's pretty okay. No, when that line, yeah, that straight line didn't really work. And I'm also just kind of following the rest of the patterns of whatever the lines, whatever direction the lines are moving at any given point. That's too much highlight, all in one spot. I can see. That's way too dark of a shadow. That doesn't work because that's too dark. So what if I do lean more towards orange, but like a lighter orange? Or how about just yellow again? Because making everything yellow just seems to be working for some. Why does that work? Also, swap back to my mouse. Sometimes mouse is just easier for certain things, I guess. Let's see. Why does yellow work? I mean, maybe, well, also, I've got blue sky and blue mountains in the background. He's got a blue cape and then yellow for an outline in the shirt, so maybe it's just complementing each other well, I guess. And then, so if I go back over here, actually, this is really cool. You get some really cool effects with this. Okay, so if I've got that, dark and ominous, and then I've got the bright and colorful, he might be coming a little bit too close to the top of the screen, like, give him more headroom. But I'm gonna leave it there for now. Well, actually, I could, if I swap the line work away from the layer that also has the highlights. Can I solo something? You can solo something in DaVinci. What if I just take what I know is specifically, and then paste it back, and then that's going to be on a new layer, and it's got a little bit of stuff, but it's not too much, and then I can just subgroup. Actually, I need to subgroup these three. And then move that entire... Nope, I need to move that entire thing. No. Okay, so maybe not group that one. That's fine. That can move above that group. That's fine. Take this entire group, move it down, and it is moving a little bit of the grass, but it's not too bad. Move that down, give them a little bit more headroom, put some background color into the mountains a little bit more. Because that wasn't a thing before. It was hidden. That's looking good! This is looking really good. Okay, and then I collapse this entire group and then compare again. Ominous. He's happy. Ah. And it was not entirely the shape. Like, I was thinking of, like, this has, like, a shape that goes like this, and he's perched on top of it. And I was thinking of a little bit of more of, like, a low angle on Leland, that it's, like, closer to the ground. Maybe that the grass is covering the lens a little bit. But this ended up being more of, like, maybe not eye level, but just, like, only very slightly a low angle, so you can still see him, like, on the top of a hill. And that we're not entirely on the top of the hill, but you can still see the background. Like, me adding the background kind of was... It fleshed out the rest of the world, basically, which is great. But it's not quite the angle that I was thinking of, because the angle I was thinking of, you couldn't see any of that, because it would have been a really low angle, and then it would have just him floating in a field of wild grass. So I didn't really want that, so giving it context really helped. I also love how the sky gradient turned out. That's great. Okay, I'm gonna open this again, and then again try to sort of... Whoop, nope. Can I get a brush that looks like the eraser? It's the same shape as the eraser, but it doesn't actually erase. I think that may exist, I just don't know which one it is. I'm just filling in a little bit of the draft color over here so that it's just, it feels a little bit more polished, even though it's still a draft. It's just slightly more polished. Nope. If I don't erase it first. Okay, and then I do erase some of the spots that are just bleeding over a little bit. Like, if it was actually, like, the actual line work, which I'm going to need to redo all the color on the inside if I actually do real line work, then it would be, well, I guess a little bit more easy not to go over the lines or anything, but this is, like, kind of quick and dirty. Okay. I want to pause on this and then give my arm a little bit of a break. And so for this, if it's... This is just a still image, but if it were part of a scene, which is likely because animating things... animating things... turning it into a movie, that was really cool! It's scary. It's very scary. Honestly, the lighting over here looks more somber. It's like a sad scene ending. Intense. And then this is just mysterious, but it's not, like, sad. And then this is more mysterious. And then this is really mysterious, so it's mysterious times 3. And then scary. And then that looks more like rain, like rain haze a little bit. Fog is just rain haze, I guess. But, like, there is sort of, like, a hazy sort of atmosphere when it's raining, which is just fog, or clouds, or just, like, the water in the thing. So, that's fine. It also just looks really good. It looks... Maybe that's why it looks a little bit more sad, is because it looks a little bit more watery, or rainy, or whatever. So, that's the scene itself. But then, like... Oh, what if this was chronological? What if it was this scene... and it was all ominous and modern, and then cut to probably spring, probably the beginning of the world's history, and it's all way more medieval focused, and there's more magic around, and then it's more naturey too, and then it's happy. It's a complete tone shift, but what if that comes after? And so it would be like he's just in this field, happy, and then it could be that he heads home, but it also could just be, it makes more sense if something happens. Like, he's out in the field relaxing. He doesn't expect anything to happen. And then, like, meteor, it wouldn't be a meteor. It's half the table there. But it was like, something unexpected happens. Like, someone who's injured walks up to him out of nowhere, and then the person collapses, and he's like, well, what do I do? And, brings him back to town, or whatever, which is a big open field, which how did the person escape notice in the first place? Because you could see people coming from miles. Maybe he was distracted. Maybe this person just appeared out of nowhere from a portal or something. I don't know, it could be that. There's also ideas that I've had of, like, there could be some sort of geological expedition, survey, not archaeological, but at least like academic mission geologically in the area, because magic rocks, I guess. And so he could be bothered by a geologist that comes up and talks to him. Although I think I like the idea of someone being injured, and then, because that would be a different interaction than, like, than this, because he's not injured and neither is he. And then, walks away, goes and does whatever he does. But then if there's something that Leland needs to interact with more, and honestly, if this is early in the world's history, and this is the first interaction you see in the world's history, and it has to do with this guy interacting with someone who's injured, and just, like, it's character decisions. So, like, oh, I've got to help this person, actually insert, it's a time traveler who came from the future. What if it was whoa. This is why I like time travel. You could, like, just throw in time travel in a lot of different places, and it's just fun. And I like it. And the trick is to make it, like, not gimmicky, although sometimes gimmicky is fun. But, like, if there's a real motivation behind it, then sure. So, like, what if, like, that looks really cool, too. What if, this guy walks off, does what he does, rescues the magic items or something. One of them was actually a time travel object, which probably Leland, in some time in his entire history of being alive, probably had something to do with, because time magic. He interacts with a time device or something, gets thrown into the past of the world, and he's like, oh, I know you, but he's injured, so he can't really talk, and then in the meantime of him being injured, then Leland brings him back, and everyone's like, what's up with this guy? And, like, all this stuff, and investigating it, and time magic, and like, okay, this is a problem, actually, and then they discover, actually, it's you, actually, you're my brother, actually, well, I mean, like, they knew they were each other's. Well, they did. It's not like a soap opera thing where it's like, like, oh my goodness, you're my secret twin. Which they're not twins, sometimes. In some drafts, they're twins. I think I like it better if they're just brothers, because then you get, like, an older and younger dynamic. So, like, I'm pretty sure Sterl's gonna be the more responsible one, but Leland's the older one, by, like, a year or two. Or maybe, I don't want to nail down how many years, because it could be, no, maybe it's just a year or two. I don't know. It's, more responsible, younger, older, but, like, shenanigans. Maybe it wasn't. Then I would have to nail down their family dynamic, and basically, family I'm thinking for these two would be, well, I have that a version of him is taken care of by his dad and his aunt, but we don't know what happened with the mom, and his dad isn't necessarily a nice guy. And then sometimes his dad shows up throughout the entire story, sometimes not. Sometimes he's a nice guy, sometimes not. The aunt is sort of a filler character because, again, I can't really write women characters that well for whatever reason. They all feel flat, which is unfortunate, but yeah, I don't know. So we've got that dynamic. and Leland also kind of like running off on his own and messing with magic stuff and doing whatever. And he's like adventurous, which does make sense for the ending up being protector of this city, which is his city, but it's not necessarily his home city where he was born. Like, it's not necessarily the same place. So he could just live there and really enjoy it. And then Sturl is the more academic type. Again, responsible, probably saw Leland, shenanigans, and then was like, yeah, nope, and then just went all academic. And so he probably travels a lot, maybe even more than Leland, but like on an academic basis. And I don't, it's hard to write siblings and not write in some sort of like little rivalry thing going on, but it's also like, they've got completely different life goals. So any sort of disagreement between them would be like, I guess on like differences in what to do next. Probably like something just happened. What do we do about it? And considering how they're also like, they're like a royalty theme in some shape or form with these two. They're not necessarily born royal either, which is interesting. But, like, there's this, like, royalty theme. So, like, Mr. Adventurous isn't good at diplomacy, and Mr. Academic is. But then he's good at fighting, and then he's not as good at fighting. Anyway, there's that sort of dynamic. What was I saying? So, when future Sturl shows up out of the blue in the middle of the field in the past, and then, Leland figures out, wait a minute, you're my brother? Why do you look like that? What's the deal? What happened in the future? What's all this time travel stuff? What's this random magic items that you have in your possession that appear stolen but are not? They were rescued. Well, if they were stolen in the first place. So, if the magic items were stolen in the first place and he's being a vigilante kind of rescue mission for the magic items, but then he doesn't know that. I don't know. It would look a whole lot more like if he's actually a good guy, and then went into the past, and it looks really, really like he's a bad guy because he's in the past and it's out of context. Then that would be super interesting because then Leland would be like, "Bro, what are you doing being a bad guy?" And he's like, "I'm really not." So but it would take some convincing. Maybe not too much convincing, but at least, like, let me explain what just happened, maybe. And then I don't know. I'm hesitant to do the entirely let me explain what happened, because then that doesn't fix everything. There's got to be something that, like, it's not necessarily fixed. There's still something to deal with. And the extent of what time travel does in the world would probably be an answer, or maybe the problem to some of that. Or maybe it's just like, okay, cool, you're injured, stay here until you heal up and then go back to where you came from. Come back to when you came from. So, like, they sort of, like, make sure that each time period sort of deals with its own problems and doesn't interfere with the other time period's problems. That's also possible. That could be a thing. I really like the little glasses are really cute right here, even if he's not reading, but he's just so happy. And then whatever CJ's doing. I'm pretty sure CJ is also aware of time travel and time traveling things, because of course he's still also friends with Leland. So, whatever time traveling things are happening here, they would all know about it. And, the extent of interactive, it would be nailing down what time travel mechanic, what is and is not time travel in this world. Because it would make sense to have, like, if there's a time loop, I don't want it to rewrite the first thing. Like, each loop, it's sort of like a slinky, as opposed to just, like, a loop that goes over back on itself. Because, like, the movie Somewhere in Time is a loop that's, it kind of like, it's really, the entire loop is what you see. And it's not a slinky effect as far as I can tell. It's just, it's a closed loop like a ring. And it's a good movie, by the way. But, like, there's no inconsistencies as far as the timeline changing. It's just things happen out of chronological order for the characters or for the world or whatever. So something that happened in the past for one character happens in the future for the other, and it's a loop. And also the watch just sort of exists. Anyway, good movie. But if the time travel here is more like a slinky, that there is a start point somewhere, and then it loops, and then that loop exists, but then the different loops exist in the future, then there is also an endpoint, and it just kind of keeps looping. So some things would reset, but certain things wouldn't. So, like, the main characters probably wouldn't reset, because they would have to be making decisions and all that, and, you know, like, living their lives and learning from the past slinky loops. And then, in order to keep moving forward and, like, make it to the end, they would have to do certain things in character development and whatever happens. So all that would need to happen. So I'm thinking, like, a slinky structure makes sense to me, that the world can potentially reset, and bookmark on who resets, because if it's just these three, then that would be very unusual for some interactions. For most interactions, it would be kind of inconsequential, but if people don't actually reset, if only the world resets and people don't, and they live their lives and whatever, then you could reach the end of the world at the beginning of the next one, and you have people that experience the end of the world in the beginning of the next one. Well, it's quote-unquote next one. It's the same world, just restarted. So you have people that, like, you know, see both sides of that. So the people wouldn't reset. But then you also got people that... See, this is why I like the idea of this world being like a... sort of a spot that's... just... It's like I guess a destination? Not a vacation destination, but, like, if you're... not necessarily on the run, but it's just, like, a place to just settle. It's like a, what's it called? Like, in space, in science fiction, you've got, like, a little settlement ship. I don't know. I'm thinking of the word settlement probably from Civ. But I've got, what if no one resets? Like, no person resets, but the world does. That makes sense to me, but then you have to have, like, a continual... I guess there would be anyway. There would be a continual, like, incoming stream of people anyway, if it happened to be like, hey, go live on this planet, because it's nice most of the time. Some of the time. Sometimes it's not, but, you know, at least it's stable enough that it would be nice. You know, it's seasonally nice, you know, like, you know, spring, summer, fall, winter. You don't want to move there in winter, but you would want to move there in spring, I guess. Which is the titles of, you know, like, the names of the chunks of the history of that world, you know, autumn, spring, summer, fall, winter. So, that would make sense. So... I wonder if it's, like, on... that it would have connections to other worlds. So it would have, like, I wonder if, like, other worlds would have, like, advertisements like, go live here. You know, it would be nice. But this is not, like, a postcard. It looks kind of like a postcard. But it's, you know, it's scenic. Sometimes. And that, like, if you wanted to live in, like, a modern sort of city, you could. You just have to go there at a particular time period. And traveling there, and, like, maybe if you... maybe if you lived during a time on another planet and wanted to move to this world, but you wanted to live in the very scenic medieval sort of land, you know, that it was in spring, but it was, like, you know, very beginning of winter, then you would have to acquire some sort of time travel technology in order to get there, or maybe, like, cryostasis, whatever your world's technology has, in order to, like, aim for a particular spot. So, like, I feel like at the beginning of spring, there would be, like, always, like, an influx of people wanting to move there, because it was like, oh, it's nice now again. So that's just sort of the cycle of the world, I guess. But also the slinky pattern of the world, you know, time loop-wise, which... the fact that the world is in a time loop kind of slinky effect anyway is very interesting. And does make sense. But it's also, like, what do these characters do? Because if, like, if their lives don't reset, if no characters' lives reset and they just keep living their lives but the world resets, then these characters would they'd be sticking around, because these are the not even technically immortal, well, immortal in a very particular way. These are the immortal in a very particular way characters, So they'd be sticking around the entire time through many time loops. Also for good reason. And so they would have to have an end goal of like possibly escaping the planet. Maybe they're stuck there for also the very good reason. The reason that the time loop exists, the reason why these guys are here constantly, and the reason why they may or may not be stuck is all the same reason. Is that the I'm thinking it's that the whoever is royalty, aka these two, would have some sort of connection to the planet in a magical way. And since this guy is time, then there's time loop world, and then, you know, whatever Starl has going on, also connected to the world. And so it would be like, hey, if we want to leave, we got to do a thing in a very particular order in order to stabilize the world in order for us to leave in the first place. So it might just be an escape story, but also might not be, because I'm not sure if that is set as the goal. But you could also have like, it's this scene, but then it's also like at sunset, and he could be not happy, and also the glass castle would have like this great, like brilliant orange because it was sunset. That'd be really cool. And then, so like he could be like sad. It could even be later that day. Like it could be the same exact picture. It's just later that day, and everything's orange. He's sad. Maybe not sad, but just like thinking. You know, encountered future version of his brother that it was injured, and he's thinking about stuff. Also, I don't think it would be, like, if it was a future version of his brother, it wouldn't be from any other Slinky loop. It would be from that Slinky loop. So, like, you couldn't really cross Slinky loops once it resets. That would be a good restraint. You know, if I go with that. I could also just be like, no, I don't want to do that, and then do something else later. So brother comes over, injured, which would be okay. So if I'm doing this real quick, brother comes over injured, but like I would need I need the I need an eyedropper tool for that. Leland would have to notice something is wrong. Notices something is wrong. It would be like a well, if I can get the shoulders correct. This is also sort of like a cloak that kind of like wraps around his neck a little bit. That needs to be lower. Not quite like that. That's pretty okay. So, I want to finish that line. So if he's looking over there, and it's... Yeah, that doesn't connect, but like that's... Close enough. So, the line work doesn't connect here, so I can very easily remove it and, put it on a different layer if needed. That's what I meant by it doesn't connect. But I do want it to be like this, like, medium close shot, where it's like you got some of the shoulders and a little bit of the torso. This medium close shot of, like, noticing something, and then, I think like a POV, kind of a POV, it would still be like... So we got injured guy. Well, the eyes wouldn't maybe look like that, but injured and kind of hunched over and like arm grasping at his chest, like, ow, I have taken damage. I am injured. Maybe not quite like that, but essentially, the concept of being injured, you probably wouldn't say it like that, but it's the concept of him being injured, and we need to figure out, like, how exactly that would go down. And he's still able to walk, pretty much. Also, still jeans. He's kind of able to walk. He's like staggering, but also through grass, which isn't the most difficult thing to walk through, but it's not the most easy thing to walk through, I imagine. So he's walking closer, kind of appeared out of nowhere, so that could just be like little haze of. No, it wouldn't be blue, it would be green. Because Leland's magic is more green. Yeah. So we've got like green time travel. He just appeared out of time. Uh, from the future of this current slinky loop. And then Leland would recognize him, so rushes up to. Oh, I'm trying to focus on keyframes. Let's just go for like he's already here. And I can do whatever in the middle too. But also, like, I could totally get away with just cutting to Leland already rushes up. Because I don't need to see all the little in-between spots of him actually walking up to Stroke, because that takes a while, and he would probably be rushing. Also in yellow, but it's slightly more golden yellow. And then getting the hair kind of where it needs to be is kind of tricky, but and then his brother, he just maybe okay, maybe I'm gonna rotate this just a little bit. Trying to get the just eye lines in shape and where things are supposed to belong, I guess. Nope, that hand is way too big for that, but that's fine because it's easy fix. That makes more sense for an arm. There we go. Okay, and then same image, but then I need to group these two together. If I could find the yes, quick group. And then this one is actual injured. Injured dragon guy. Maybe move that a little bit. dragging hands with claws, and then he's just, I don't know, other than just very injured, like, brother, you're injured, and also you look like that, like, out in broad daylight, and you're like, well, you know, CJ already, CJ already told me about that, and it was probably, you know, probably no better where I was earlier. Probably no more of a good idea. Uh, to be looking like that in the middle of a city where magic probably isn't a thing much anymore, and is kind of I don't know, all the stuff that's happening in the modern version of the story, like in the middle of a field where there's only Leland, in the middle of a world that's already kind of magical anyway, is probably more fine. It's just the main thing is that little director. The main thing is that he's injured. Sad. And then I can very quickly, so like if this is, we got this, and then that's gonna bug me. That's better. And he lost the little glasses. Maybe he took off the little glasses. I'm gonna add more, not time distortions, just time effects, I guess. Time effects. That's better. Yeah, that makes more sense. But also just to make sure that mountain range is over here. Because just 180-degree rule, just like we're not gonna be facing, like, the mountains are always kind of gonna be in the background a little bit, and we're not gonna like go on to the other side of Leland, like, because if the like if we mirrored that and then the mountains weren't there, wait, yeah, if we mirrored that and like suddenly it doesn't make sense anyway, well, and then it's still mirrored. Well, anyway, 180-degree rule. Mountains are in that direction. Basically, like, we can tell, like, to Leland's right. And I need to put those back. But the mountains are to Leland's right. And it still is. The moment you start flipping around, like, where things are, where the camera is, and it can get kind of confusing and disorienting. And it's not the end of the world if that happens, because you can also break it intentionally really well. But I'm just paying attention to where it is, just in case, like, as if this was filmed. Because I do want it to be like a little bit of a movie if I do, and I would want to end up assembling it at some point in the future, although that might be very far in the future. Because that would have to be, like, to a polished state. And I had a script and everything. That would have to be very polished. So that's sometimes way far in the future. I'm just drawing everything out. It's still so good. And it still looks so good. Yeah, he warps in. Brother, are you okay? You're injured. And then I want another shot of like, it's the fields, and they're going back towards town. And then again, mountains. And again, Glass Castle. And they're walking back to town. That's a completely different kind of yellow. But, you know, sort of helping his brother, like, walk, because apparently it doesn't look like his legs were hurt that much, but if his, like, insides are, like, a little bit hurt, then maybe he would have trouble walking. That makes sense. Also, Leland, navy blue cape. And then brother who was injured. Just like, yep. And then he's like, by the way, I'm from the future. Yeah, I figured. So, by the way, other plot relevant stuff, like, oh, that's cool, I didn't know that, or like, oh, that's none of my business, or like, whatever else happens. And then back to the green, just grass. And that's also the very draft. It's not going in the right direction. That is. Hey, actually, that was almost like. So, shape of the world right there. Just time loop, slinky. It's just this. Time loop, slinky, and then the world restarts, and then the world restarts, but like the people don't. So that's just the world. And so like, if Leland, being the time guy who's making the world do that, is like making the world go into a time loop, then is he also, well, he's causing it one way or another. Whether he like super represents time loop in general is kind of up in the air, and probably not gonna lean into that too hard, but just like time magic is causing the loop thing to happen, basically. And so they gotta deal with it. And then you're like, yeah, let's go back to the thing, so that you can recover. And he's like, no, I gotta get back to the whatever. And like, no, it can wait because time travel. You could show up literally minutes, like seconds later, and you'd be fine. But you could like, recover for a month or whatever because time travel. Well, Leland would be very knowledgeable about what. That's the director. Leland would be very knowledgeable about what time can and can't do, but also, like in reference to time magic, like his own magic, and also like time in general without his interference or anything. And then, just in general, Sterl would be knowledgeable about whatever he's got going on with his magic. But they don't have like exclusive rights over whatever that type of magic is. They're just the best at it. They have the top of the leaderboard, which makes sense. That they'd be the most knowledgeable about whatever the thing is. But also, at least with Leland, maybe a little bit, and with Sterl, that it comes more intuitively. Okay, so Leland would be more of a sorcerer, and then Sterl would be more of a wizard because Sterl is more academic, and Leland is more just like, let's just wing it. However, like, sorcerer and wizard aren't like formal, structural, distinct things in this world like they are in D&D. But that's just on a concept level. That's what they're more similar to. Also, I'm gonna drink some water. So Leland talking to his brother, being like, like, hey, time travel, and just like all the jargon he would understand. Certain things like, no, you're staying here to recover because like the future can wait, basically. And he would also be like a little bit sassy about it, probably, because I tend to write Leland as a bit more sassy. I guess that's something. Sterl is also pretty sassy at some points, but he's more just like, he's more pinpoint with it if he wants to be sassy with it. Like, he's very like, he takes things more seriously. He's more academic. He's more responsible. But like, he like, I guess, bides his time and waits for like, if he needs like a really not cunning, not stunning, I lost the word, but it was like a sharp remark, I guess. If he needs it, he'll be really pinpoint about it and like find the right time and the right moment. And then we got wholesome bean CJ, who's just there to help and be the good friend and be helpful. And I think CJ also has certain moments in the story where he's like, it's like he's going on his own adventures and he's got his own story. And he is the sort of like Samwise to the other two, that he's just the good friend that's sort of holds everything together. Sometimes. But he does have his own story and his own kind of journey and stuff, but that's like a way more like slice of life plot structure. Like, so you've got like these guys, which is way more like big dramatic things happening all the time. And then it's like slice of life CJ like going off and like seeing the world. So like you see way more of like what the world is actually like and like little wholesome moments in the world as seen from CJ's perspective. And then these two get the really big dramatic moments of like, oh, we got big enemies to fight, or we got, like this thing is happening, or the world's collapsing, or like we got earthquakes, or whatever's happening. Literally whatever, they have to deal with, because also royalty in some capacity, so they kind of have to deal with it. And then CJ just goes around and travels. He's also the cinema, person, like, I wouldn't say director, because I'm the director, but he's the equivalent holdover of the cinema bar player class that I came up with. So he's got a camera in some capacity, and so he just goes around and, takes little video things, or, or films it, or takes photographs, or whatever he's doing. So yeah, slice of life person, big dramatic stuff happening, people. And then sometime in the far future, assuming that Ice King and Sterl are the same person, because both use ice magic, both use coincidence, it just makes sense, coincidence magic, it makes sense. And then if he has like a disguise that Leland wouldn't immediately recognize, that, like they can interact, and then not know that is the plot twist, that is the soap opera plot twist. They're like, wait a minute, you're my brother? You're like, yeah, I never did that, because you are disguised. Why would you do that? They're like, well, I kind of needed to, for whatever reason. But, like, the moment, like, so these, this cape thing, are these, like, magic wings that are basically just, like, magical appendages, that he can use and manipulate, and they're, like, just, like, made of energy and stuff. So, like, the moment that Sterl gets those, like, has enough of a power level to actually get those, then Leland immediately knows. He's like, oh, okay, you're the same person, great. And then immediately goes talk to Ice King and says, hey, brother, how are you doing? So it's the fun moment. So that's why I like the idea that these two are the same people. That's why I like that idea. But also, it wouldn't just work to, like, visually disguise Sterl, because they're also, like, I still like the idea that these guys are shapeshifters, so, like, they could look differently and they would still relatively know it's them because of their magic signature or whatever. Maybe signature is the wrong word, but, like, they would know each other from their magic. So Ice King would have to disguise his own magic pretty heavily in order for Leland not to recognize him, basically. So that's the fun soap opera twist in that section of the story. So that's fun. But the new scene, the happy field of grass, that is actually, like, really more yellow than I anticipated, but it looks great. Just Leland hanging out. And then, by the way, he sees someone, and then, okay, so maybe there's, like, a sound effect. Maybe there's some, like, light going on. Maybe I need to use the tablet for that, because that doesn't look great. Ooh. Magic. There's green time magic coming from that way. And he's like, that's my time magic? What is happening? And then the Stellar shows up from, like, a green portal or something, and then is injured. And you're like, okay, you're injured. Let's go take you back to the castle. And that's the wrong. Yeah, that's a really different set of colors, but it's fine. And then whatever happens after that would be another scene. So a scene would be categorized as, like, if you change location or time of day, then it's a different scene, I believe. So, like, this is the same location and it's the same time of day, it's one scene, but you cut to whatever's happening in the glass castle, like Sterl's being taken care of by whatever doctors they have, or whatever, or maybe, like, Leland's just taking care of him because there's the director again, because this guy has healing magic to some degree. I like the idea that he has healing magic, but maybe not, like, an expert, so maybe, like, a little bit, so maybe, like, Leland's healing his brother or whatever. So, like, that's happening, but that would be considered another scene. But, like, this, despite that, I would, This one shot is technically outside of the city, but it's still part of the same scene. So that might be like a cross-cutting kind of a thing, but it's still close enough that it's still within the city, I think. So this would all be part of the same scene. That's still such a cool shot. I don't know how I even came up with that. That was just me experimenting a lot with orange. And then that just happened, and those intense eyes look great. And yeah, you understandably look scared. That would be very scary. And then, you know, whatever happens, they talk, and then he leaves and all that. So that one, this moment is more for just, like, you look scary, but it's, like, he's not actually a threat. So that is all one scene. That's one scene in itself. And I might have to start grouping these groups. Yeah. Maybe I'll get to it when the next time where I have a third scene going on, because, like, I've got this, and it's a good start. And then whenever I stream next time, which I'm not sure when it would be, it might be in a week, it might be in 2 weeks, it might be a while. I'm not sure. But whenever I work on this next, I could work on finishing these, or I might feel like I want to start a new scene. So, like, it would depend. But this is also one of those weird scenes that, like, because that grass is so detailed, then it might be one of those things that it's like, I'm gonna have to pull some clever tricks with making it look like it's moving. And there's this very particular animated movie called Island of the Skog, where it has this very interesting, like, hand-drawn effect, but there's a couple of scenes where there's, like, I guess it's a dissolve, where things kind of, like, fade in and out as they're moving to suggest movement, which is very interesting. And it's also, like, it's a great animated movie TV one-off thing? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's excellently done. It was also a little bit scary for young me, but it has a happy ending, so that's fine. That's good. But it's got this really interesting, like, fade in, fade out, dissolve sort of thing to suggest movement. So I might do that with the grass, that I paint over this pretty similarly, but then different enough that it's different. This also happens a lot with letters, that, like, if you trace over letters, like, 2 or 3 times, and then have it in a sequence, it looks like it's moving around a little bit, like little squiggles, but it's still the same letter, so it's still whole, but it looks slightly different because you wrote over it again. That's also common in animatics, animation stuff. So, like, I could draw over this, make it slightly different, but maybe not too different, because, like, even drawing over this is going to make a lot of differences. So I'm also moving my hand towards the screen, but you can't see that. I'm just motioning towards the grass a lot. So I draw over it, and then it's slightly different, and then I do that, like, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times or something, and so then I have these, like, drawn out, like, the grass appears to be moving slowly. Maybe fast, maybe, like, there's some, like, inconsistent, like, it's slow at first, and then it speeds up, and then it slows down a little bit. I could do that, but then, any animatic animation things I do for Leland would be different. This background probably would be its own thing and probably static. Or maybe, like, a little bit of light change if, you know, if it's the middle of the day, I don't expect much light to change. If it were sunset, if it were the same scene, but Leland is more sad, and it's also sunset, then I could do a lot of more dramatic light changes, because we got golden hour, then it's really red and orange, and then, like, this, like, sun going directly below the horizon, and we got this, like, blue hour kind of thing going on, and then it's dark. It's, like, 4 different lighting states within the next 20 minutes or something. You know, in-universe 20 minutes. So that's fun. But yeah, for this scene by itself, it's just like, oh, Stroll just happened to show up out of nowhere. You know, and that's easy 5 frames to draft. And was this also 5? This was also 5 frames. I'm having a thing with just, like, making 5 frames. Although this one, despite having very simple lines and very, like, on par, very, like, you know, rough sketch lines, has really dramatic lighting. Also, that would be more polished. Like CJ's face here would be more polished. And that is just more in my drawing style. Like, there's some spots that I could clean up a little bit more, but, like, largely that is what my drawing style would be. Or like that, which is just still scary. Um, I love how your eye just goes to like this, but then if you like look at CJ, then he's still all there. He's still getting some. He's still getting half of the screen. He's still there. He's still an important character, and it's just scary. That is starting to get like less so in my style. I might need to polish that or bump that up. But it's also like a weird angle because that's like that's a 3/4 shot from behind. So his head is not quite where I want it to be. But if it was accurate to a 3/4 from behind shot, you couldn't see his eyes. Which maybe I might lean into that, but like I do want to see his expression. But also I could just flip that, like you can't see his eyes here. And I update it so that like you definitely can't see his eyes, the head is in the correct position and everything, but then you cut to his actual reaction. That's probably how you would have to do it if it were live action anyway. But for this, it's like this communicates what I want it to. I can fine tune it later and add another shot later. Pretty close to my drawing style. That is not the eyes specific, like that is, but the eyes aren't. So I'd have to fix the eyes, and the rest of it is sketch. Again, the eyes. I might fix the nose too, but like a quick sketch of my drawing style, kind of looks like this and like this. But when it's more polished and I spend more time on it, then you get like, well, that's also really good. You also get this. And you also get this. I'm just so happy with how that turned out, too. It's wild. Okay, and then... And then you get some, like, really unusual, just, like... Because some of this is semi-transparent, because I've got this, like, gray background, which is like my best attempt at an 18% gray card, which has a completely different purpose in photography. Like you use an 18% gray card to measure white balance and set your camera to the correct white balance. Like if you need an external card, you can also do that with a plain white sheet of paper. Most digital cameras just use a plain white sheet of paper for that kind of stuff. There's the depth of field example again. But 18% gray, I just call it that because I'm familiar with that in photography terms. But for this, it's just easier on your eyes to discern what the color is, like the actual color is. Because if this was on white, well, that's also, well, let's unlock that and then paint bucket tool. Those look like completely different colors now. Like, I would probably try to lighten that yellow when I don't need to, because it's already... hold on, where'd that go? It's already very light. It's actually, like, it's an optical illusion. It's a useful optical illusion. So against a white background, it looks like this. Gray background. It's just, it's way easier to tell what colors actually are. That's why the gray background. And I'm going to lock that again, because I don't want to mess with that. But because I'm also doing stuff that's like the background is, you know, not entirely solid because I've got that gray background. Like I've got the gray background as base. And then all the colors that you put on it are not necessarily solid. So you get some very interesting things happening. Hold on. Like, well, there's that. But you could see it better with, like, if you try to make two things visible at once, is that, like, this was actually semi-transparent. So you can get these, like, cool overlapping things, which makes it great if I had wanted to, like, dissolve between the two of these. Because, like, that would be pretty easy. Look, that was a pretty good dissolve. Can I do it smoothly and it'll show up? Maybe, kind of. Yeah, like that looks really good. I think it was this one though. It was this one that would fade into this. Yeah, that makes more sense story-wise. So then that happens. And then whatever it ends on. What was the thing it ended on? It was this one. this could fade into Sterl in a maybe not a hospital bed, but just a bed, or maybe like a bench, or maybe like no, I'm not actually that injured. Don't worry about me. You know, like it's fine. This sort of a thing. Like, and although I wouldn't want to you overuse the dissolves because like dissolve makes sense for this because this is like in an emotional scene. It's more emotional, I guess, because if you know they just yeah they probably talked about something serious or dangerous or I mean they weren't talking about the weather. They were probably talking about like why are you off doing a dangerous thing. And you're like, no, I'm gonna go off and do it anyway. You know that was kind of a tense scene, and so then that dissolving into this, well, I'm dissolving the wrong thing. That dissolving into this where Leland is happy and it's all sunny and there's like you know there's nice wild grass and there's a city in the background. It's really scenic and it's really pretty. Like that is a really that's a mood shift, but it's like a storytelling kind of mood shift where like you're going from tense moment to relaxing moment, but it's still connected to each other. And then when you see later, you know, the not so happy moment of you know, Leland being sad, there's like a sunset kind of a thing. Um Actually, could I copy this group and move it down here? And then Alpha Lock change all the colors of some of this stuff so that it is at sunset. just making my life easier. And that's not the right button. Is it actually? It is actually changing stuff. Oh, wait. Yeah, it is actually changing stuff. Okay, so that's a sunset. What's this one? Just everything is orange now. And then I'm going to make it a little bit more. Let's try purple. Let's try purple. And then you can very obviously see the green that's in this layer, but I could also fix that because this is just a rough sketch. I mean, it's like, it's rough draft. I've already sketched it. That doesn't look quite, that looks more accurate. Yeah, that's starting to look more like evening. What did I miss? Like that. Missed that. I'm not trying to make it look like Halloween either. These mountains can actually be darker, not purple. Okay, thing with that color changing tool is that it doesn't actually. These are the problems that I know that's way too dark, but it's similar in concept, but I need a different color. Better. Navy, and then it still goes into the distance, kind of lighter. Over here, that's fine. Uh, and then the sky would need to be something else. Which is probably closer to yellow than orange. Yeah. That looks really no. Yellow, no. Gonna take some finessing. How about I just like paint over it? Because this is not quite how I imagined. Okay. Not quite. Not quite. Nope. Like a yellow sort of sky background, but then it does eventually go into orange, especially if there's like a lot of orange reflecting in the grass. But I want it to be a lot more yellow. That just, the castle now reminds me of the Emerald City of Oz, but it's not the same thing, but it's a great, I wouldn't say it's not an inspiration, because I do love Wizard of Oz, and like the image of just like, we're going to the Emerald City of Oz. The shape, no. That's, even if it is similar, that's not an inspiration. And then story-wise and the function in the story, no, it doesn't match at all. This is really bright, so I might need to take some of this down. That's looking better. It looks like autumn. Okay. I maybe need to swap some of this. I still need more yellow in here. Yeah, I need to alpha lock and color change it again. Hold up. I thought I pressed alpha lock. This looks a whole lot more less. Doesn't look. Maybe I'll keep this and save it for something else, because this looks a whole lot more ominous and doomsday-like, so sort of like what happens later in the story, than just evening. So maybe I just need to change. I'm gonna work on swapping out. Well, first of all, I need to be able to see him. Not alpha lock. That's better. That is temporary. And then I'd saved the other one, right? Yes. It looks so much more Doomsday-like. I'm keeping it because that's useful for another part of the story. However, that's not what I need now. I was looking for sunset, so maybe like the exact palette swap of the exact happy scene into more of like of an ominous sort of doomsday-looking sort of palette is interesting, and I will keep that. But if I need it to be sunset, then I think I need to do that manually, unless I want to keep working this to death, which I'm not necessarily sure I want to, because I kind of want to wrap up stream. But at the very least, I can make Leland look concerned. With the proper size brush. I want the head slightly in a different spot, actually. Maybe like a little bit more hunched over, like, oh no, stuff is going down. Yeah, something like that. Again, those aren't really my style of eyes, but it's close enough that it gets the point across. His hair kind of falling in front of his face. That works. Well, okay. Undo that. That shoulder is not working, so I need to redo this. Because this cloak is kind of in a different position. Not much, but it is. Shoulder is not that broad. Because I feel like there's some characters that are like, well, there is a version of Leland in this very specific version of the story that is more big and muscular and has more of like a football kind of build. However, for the most part, CJ would actually be the bulkiest one. And then Leland and Stroh both have like a soccer player type build. As best as I can capture that. Or maybe like swimmer is also similar, but I'm still picturing soccer player. Just from the like more speedy, less like as far as D&D classes, you wouldn't like look at this guy and think barbarian. You might think maybe rogue, or one of the other lightweight or not more lightweight kind of classes. I'm thinking of a lot of classes, and I'm like, wait, no, you could still have characters that are like barbarian. You usually picture like really big, muscular, scary, intimidating, but you can have a barbarian that's not big and muscular and scary, intimidating at all. Or you can have the vice versa, where the rogue is big and muscular and scary and intimidating. But he's not like the weak and pathetic like maybe it's a bit mean. I was thinking of I started going into epic song lyrics there. He's not like a pushover like you would normally think of as a wizard or a sorcerer, that they rely more on magic as opposed to physical prowess. Like, he could actually be kind of scary. It would just have to be in the right circumstances, and he would probably do better with speed over like winning an arm wrestling match, but he's not like out for the count as far as an arm wrestling match. It would just probably have to be, it depends on who I must have fight. It depends on who you challenge to an arm wrestling match. So yeah, he's probably like a lean build, but still strong, but like not super intimidating unless you get on his bad side, kind of character, I guess. And then Sturl would be the hold on, collapse that. Yeah, Sturl would be the book nerd who you could potentially be knocked over by a strong breeze kind of a thing. But he is also very competent in his own way, but just I think more towards magic or whatever else he's doing and with the bookworm knowledge. So he could still fight you, and it would kind of be surprising that he could still fight whoever the enemy is at the time. It would just be surprising because he doesn't look it at all. Like, Leland, definitely more of like a soccer player or swimmer build where, lean but strong, and you could see it, and he's still, kind of visually a little bit intimidating. Steryl's not at all. And then CJ, way more of a bigger build and could probably dip into being muscular if he wanted to be. And at some parts of the story, he probably is. But for the most part, he's probably just like tall, and that's the intimidating part. Because otherwise, he's just sweet and wholesome. He's got a camera, and he travels, and has like a slice of life. He could be like a travel vlogger. He probably is sometimes, especially in the modern sections of the story. He's just like, wholesome little travel vlogger. But they all could potentially fight whatever enemies they're fighting and do well. They're all very competent. So there's that. And despite Ice King being also probably the same guy and also a bookworm and also not super intimidating physically, he's very intimidating because he's got just a permanent scowl, because that's just the character that he's putting on. Assuming this is they're the same person kind of story arc. He's got this permanent skeleton going on. He's got these like magic energy wings that are massive, by the way, that are very scary. So he's got size as far as these big wings, but otherwise he's just kind of like bookworm. And now I'm thinking of the bookworm, the worm with a Y, which dragon, because they're dragon anyway. They're dragons in some way, in some capacity, in some version of the story. And even if it's not called dragons, like because I think yeah, this would still count. That would be like more of a glowworm thing, because that's the in-universe name for a dragon for the most part is a glowworm. But he's a dragon. It's just a dragon. Just a shorthand dragon is fine. In-universe glowworm, that's also fine. So anyway, yep, I think that's about it for this stream. Thank you all for watching, and there was no one chatting, but that's fine. That happens sometimes. It's actually, it doesn't bother me too much, because it's, I just get to keep talking. But yes, that is stream. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for VOD watchers as well, and I will be around doing something at some point in time. My schedule's a bit mixed up at the moment. I might be streaming. I might be streaming in a week, in 2 weeks, or whatever. Very likely an episode of something is coming out soon. Also, more likely than not, shorts will be popping up, you know, out of the blue, out of nowhere. Similar, well, maybe not injured shorts such as Sterl over here, but maybe shorts will pop in out of nowhere. Oh, look, there's the director. There's me. But yes, thank you all for watching. Thank you, VOD watchers, for watching. I will be back at some point in the future. Maybe not even doing art. Maybe doing Stardew or Minecraft or whatever else I'm doing. Whatever I feel up to at the moment. I also had an idea for streaming a different game, but I will save that for the future, because I would have to finish up a couple of things on my plate presently, but I have an idea for the far future that I'm excited about. But again, far future. So that's fine. But yes, thank you, and that is stream, so later!